The night was quiet until the door opened, and everything shattered. Bai Lu had not planned to walk in. She had only returned to grab a script she left behind, but destiny has a way of choosing the moments that hurt the most. She pushed the door slightly, expecting silence, yet what she saw froze her in place and made her heart thunder in her chest. Inside the room, Dylan, Wang, and Shen Yue were seated too close, their voices low, their faces marked with emotions that were impossible to mistake. Shen Yue's hand trembled as Dylan reached for it, his words soft yet heavy, words that carried the kind of intimacy no one was meant to hear. Bai Lu's breath caught in her throat, her pulse racing. She wanted to turn back, to erase the image burning in her eyes, but her body would not move. Then came the silence, the kind of silence that screams louder than any argument. Dylan's gaze locked with Shen Yue's, and the world seemed to shrink down to the two of them. Shen Yue looked like she was about to speak, her lips parting, her eyes glistening with emotions too deep to hide. But before she could say anything, Bai Lu's presence was revealed. The door creaked, and both Dylan and Shen Yue turned. The weight of guilt and truth filled the room instantly. Bai Lu stood frozen at the doorway, her face pale, her hands trembling. She was not prepared for this, not tonight, not like this. Dylan tried to stand, his mouth opening to form an explanation, but no sound came out. His voice failed him, because explanations were too fragile to fix what Bai Lu had just witnessed. Shen Yue lowered her gaze, her cheeks burning with shame and something even stronger, something close to desperation. It was at that very moment that Wong Eba entered from the hallway. He had overheard enough to sense the tension, but had not expected this storm. When his eyes darted between Dylan, Shen Yue, and Bai Lu, he froze. For once, the usually composed and guarded Wong Eba was speechless. His lips parted, but no words came. He could only stare, wide-eyed, as the truth unfolded in front of him. The air became heavy. No one moved. No one dared to speak first. Bai Lu finally stepped forward, her voice shaking, her words carrying both pain and fury. So, this is what has been going on behind closed doors. Her tone cut through the silence, and both Dylan and Shen Yue flinched, as though the weight of her heartbreak had struck them physically. Dylan finally found his voice, begging her to listen, swearing that it was not what it looked like, but the room itself seemed to reject his words. Shen Yue tried to defend him, her eyes pleading with Bai Lu to believe, but the truth was already too raw, too visible. The betrayal lingered in the air, and the silence between every word was more powerful than any explanation. Wong Eba finally exhaled, running his hand across his face, as though trying to process the chaos. "I do not even know what to say," he whispered, his voice low, almost defeated. For a man of few words, those were heavier than 100 accusations. His expression told everything. He was disappointed, broken by the scene he had just witnessed, unable to align the people he trusted with the actions laid bare before him. Bai Lu's eyes glistened as she turned away, her heart refusing to break in front of them. But everyone in that room knew the damage was already done. The internet would later catch fire with rumors of what really happened that night, with whispers about Bai Lu's heartbreak, Dylan's mistake, Shen Yue's silence, and Wang Yibo's shocking reaction. Fans around the world debated, replaying every leaked detail, wondering what had really unfolded in those unbearable moments. What no one could deny, however, was that this was a night that would never be forgotten. The night Bai Lu walked in at the wrong time, the night truth collided with trust, and the night Wang Eba stood in stunned silence, unable to hide what he truly felt. The silence after Bai Lu's words did not fade. It thickened like a storm gathering strength. Dylan tried to step forward, but his own footsteps betrayed him, hesitant and weak. Shen Yue clenched her hands so tightly her knuckles whitened, her lips trembling as though she wanted to scream but could not. Bai Lu's voice still echoed through the air, laced with pain that cut sharper than any weapon. Wang Eba, still frozen, finally moved closer into the room. His eyes darted across each of them, as if searching for a truth none were willing to admit. "Tell me this is not real," he finally said, his voice low, raw, but steady. No one answered. Not Dylan, not Shen Yue, and certainly not Bai Lu. The silence itself was confirmation. Bai Lu let out a sharp laugh, not out of joy, but disbelief. I defended you, she whispered, her eyes fixed on Dylan. I stood by you when the world doubted you. I believed in everything you said, every promise you made. And this is what I get in return. Her voice cracked, yet she held herself firm, unwilling to fall apart in front of them. Dylan's chest rose and fell as he tried to find the courage to respond. It is not what you think, Bai Lu, he said, his voice breaking. But even he knew those words were fragile. Shen Yue glanced at him, then at Bai Lu, her face pale, her heart racing as if she were caught between two flames. I saw enough, Bai Lu cut him off, her voice firmer now. I saw the way you looked at her. I heard the way you spoke. You did not need to say more. Your silence already speaks louder than anything else. The room seemed to collapse under the weight of her words. Shen Yue lowered her eyes, guilt heavy in her chest. Dylan moved toward Bai Lu, desperate, but Wong Eba stepped forward sharply, his presence suddenly commanding. Stay where you are, Eba said, his tone colder than ice. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkened, and for the first time, Dylan looked powerless in front of him. Bai Lu felt her chest tighten as tears threatened to fall, but she held them back with force. She would not cry, not here, not now. She looked at Wang Eba, her expression silently begging him to take her side, to anchor her in this chaos. Eba's gaze softened slightly as he looked at her, but when he turned back to Dylan and Shen Yue, it was like steel. You two need to understand what you just destroyed, Eba said firmly. This is not about rumors or scandals anymore. This is about trust, and once it breaks, nothing can put it back the same way. Dylan's face crumbled as he tried to defend himself. Eba, you are misunderstanding. No, Eba interrupted, his voice sharp. The only misunderstanding here is how you thought you could hide something like this and expect no one to find out. His words cut, and Dylan flinched, as though each syllable pierced deeper. Shen Yue finally spoke, her voice trembling. It was a mistake, she whispered. I never wanted this to happen. I never meant to hurt anyone. Bai Lu turned to her slowly, her expression unreadable. A mistake is forgetting a line on stage, Shen Yue. A mistake is missing a rehearsal. What I saw tonight was not a mistake. It was a choice. Shen Yue's knees weakened as those words struck her. Dylan tried to shield her, his hand hovering protectively, but that only made Bai Lu's heart sink further. The room was suffocating now. Every second was heavy with betrayal, regret, and words left unsaid. The confrontation spilled into the hallway where crew members, sensing something had gone wrong, pretended to busy themselves, but their ears were tuned to every sound. Phones buzzed, whispers traveled like wildfire. Within minutes, fragments of the scene began surfacing online. Fans across the world caught hints of a confrontation, and speculation exploded. Hashtags trended, with Bai Lu's name tied to heartbreak, Dylan's tied to betrayal, Shen Yue's tied to scandal, and Wang Yibo's tied to shock. Comments flooded in, some defending, some accusing, some simply stunned by the raw humanity of it all. Back in the room, Bai Lu finally turned toward the door. Her hands trembled as she reached for the handle, but her voice was steady as she spoke. I will not fight for someone who does not fight for me. With that, she left, her steps heavy but firm. Wang Eba followed, not saying a word, but his presence behind her was louder than any promise. Dylan called after her, his voice breaking, but she did not turn back. Shen Yue sat down, burying her face in her hands, realizing the cost of everything that had just unfolded. For Dylan, the night was a collapse. For Shen Yue, it was shame. For Bai Lu, it was heartbreak. For Wang Eba, it was the moment he realized that silence sometimes says more than any speech. And for the world watching online, it was the night everything changed, the night a single walk into a room rewrote the fate of 4 stars, and left fans with questions that may never truly be answered.